Famous people who passed away in 1735. This is the second episode. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. Thomas Tanner. He was born in January 1674 and he died in December 1735. His age was 61 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Thomas Tanner was an English bishop and scholar whose antiquarian works, especially his bibliography of British and Irish authors, remain valuable references in historical studies. Tanner's chief work, published during his lifetime, is the Notitia Monastica, a short account of all the religious houses in England and Wales. This was published at Oxford in 1695. It was printed with additions by author's brother John Tanner in 1744 and was reprinted again with further additions by James Nasmyth in 1787. He also wrote Bibliotheca Britannico-Hibernica, a dictionary of all the authors who flourished in England, Scotland, and Ireland before the opening of the 17th century, at which he labored for 40 years. This was eventually completed by David Wilkins and published in 1748, 13 years after the author's death. Tanner also collected materials for a history of Wiltshire. Sophia Louise of Mecklenburg-Schwerin. She was born in May 1685 and she died in July 1735. Her age was 50 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. Sophia was the last queen consort of King Frederick I of Prussia, remembered for her piety and contributions to courtly culture. Sophia was reportedly of a vivid and extrovert personality and allowed the utmost liberty as regarded her conduct by her brother, which has caused some gossip. Sophia's marriage was arranged by the powerful Prussian minister-president Count Johann Casimir Kolbe von Wartenberg, who pursued King Frederick to marry for the sake of the succession after he had been widowed for a second time. In 1708, the firstborn son of the crown princess died in infancy, and the physicians expressed doubt that she would be able to conceive again. In January 1713, only a few weeks before his death, Frederick sent her back to her family in Mecklenburg-Schwerin. Sophia was described as helpless, mindless, and melancholy, but once more gentle and calm. Justus Van Effen. He was born in February 1684 and he died in September 1735. His age was 51 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Justus was a Dutch writer and journalist whose essays helped shape the intellectual landscape of 18th century Europe, drawing inspiration from English periodicals like The Spectator. A journalist, he imitated The Spectator with the publication of the Dutch language Holland's Spectator. He gained international fame as a writer of French periodicals and a translator of English into French, and he is also recognized as one of the most important Dutch language writers of the 18th century and an influential figure of the Dutch Enlightenment. What gained him fame, however, were his literary and journalistic endeavors. A translator from English to French, he translated Swift's Tale of a Tub into Dutch and Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, and is credited with a significant influence in the bringing of English literature to continental Europe. Frederick William, Prince of Hohenzollern-Hechlingen. He was born in September 1663 and he died in November 1735. His age was 72 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a German prince and military leader whose governance of Hohenzollern-Hechlingen was marked by his dedication to imperial service and local administration. In the imperial army, Frederick Wilhelm was field marshal and the owner of a regiment of cuirassiers bearing his name. In 1682, he participated in the suppression of an uprising in Hungary and in the victory in the Battle of Slankamen. In 1702, he was taken prisoner in Friedlingen. However, he managed to free himself. 2 years later, he fought on the victorious side in the Battle of Blenheim. Also in 1704, he fought under Field Marshal Sigbert Heister to suppress another Hungarian uprising with permission from the Emperor. Frederick reached an agreement with the Elector of Brandenburg about the Burgraviate of Nuremberg and became one of the first recipients of the Prussian Order of the Black Eagle. Bernardo de Hoyos. He was born in August 1711 and he died in November 1735. His age was 24 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was typhus. He was a Spanish Catholic priest, mystic, and member of Society of Jesus. He is best known for his ardent devotion to the Sacred Heart and for his constant promotion of it until his premature death. His beatification by the Catholic Church was held in Valladolid on 18th April 2010. His mystical vision and writing played a key role in spreading the devotion to the Sacred Heart in Spain. He entered the Jesuit colleges of Medina del Campo and Villa Garcia de Campos and later entered the novitiate under the direction of Felix de Vargas on 11th July 1726. He took his simple vows in 1728. He underwent philosophical studies at the College of San Pedro in San Pablo in Medina del Campo. In September 1731, he began his theological studies at the College of San Ambrosio in Valladolid. Edward Halley. He was born in June 1664 and he died in August 1735. His age was 71 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Edward Halley was an English nobleman and bibliophile whose vast manuscript collection became a cornerstone of the British Library's historical archives. He was also auditor of the imprests. Because of this, and to distinguish him from other family members of the same name, is frequently known as Auditor Halley. He represented Droitwich in the Parliament from 1695 to 1698, after which he was a member of Leominster almost continuously until 1722. He was appointed Recorder of Leominster for 1692 to 1732 and joint auditor of the imprests for life in 1702. He was a solid supporter of his brother's government from 1710 to 1714. He strongly opposed the 1715 measure in the Commons to have Halley impeached, but this was unsuccessful and his brother was imprisoned in the Tower of London for 2 years. Jasper Swadberg. He was born in August 1653 and he died in July 1735. His age was 81 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Jasper was a prominent Swedish bishop and theologian, recognized for his contributions to religious reform and his role in shaping Swedish liturgical practices. His family were devoted Christians. After basic school, he began studying theology at the University of Lund in 1669 with the intention of becoming a minister. In 1674, he went north to the University of Uppsala, where he further educated himself until he became a priest. In 1683, he got married, and during the next 2 years, he traveled through Europe. In Sweden, he had learned much theory but in Europe he saw many practical approaches towards the Christian faith. Among them were the traditions of the Catholic Church in France and the priest movement in Hamburg, Germany. Peter Artedi, he was born in February 1705 and he died in September 1735. His age was 30 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Peter was a Swedish naturalist whose pioneering work in ichthyology laid the groundwork of modern fish taxonomy, collaborating closely with Carl Linnaeus. In 1728, his countryman Carl Linnaeus arrived in Uppsala, and a lasting friendship was formed between the two from 1729. In 1732, both left Uppsala, Artedi for England and Linnaeus for Lapland. Before parting, they reciprocally bequeathed to each other their manuscripts and books, agreeing to finishing each other's work in the event of one predeceasing the other. In 1734, he visited England, mentioning a whale in London in November downstream of the London Bridge, and a meeting with Hans Sloane. Artedi left London in summer 1735 and met Linnaeus in Leiden. Artedi was short of money, and Linnaeus introduced him to Albertus Seba, a wealthy Dutchman who had formed what was perhaps the richest museum of his time in Amsterdam, Margaretha von Ascheberg. She was born in July 1671 and she died in October 1735. Her age was 64 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. She was a Swedish landowner, noble, and acting regiment colonel during the Great Northern War. She was known for her administrative skills and efforts to support the Swedish army during critical periods of conflict. In January 1691, she married Colonel Count Kjell Christopher Barnekow in Malmö. As was the custom of Swedish nobility at that time, she kept her name after marriage and styled herself Gravinnen Ascheberg. During the war, she took care of the continued equipment and affairs of the regiment and exchanged letters with Charles XII of Sweden about its appointments and promotions. She was called Coloneless or Madame Colonel. She was admired for the energy and care with which she performed her unusual task, a circumstance which in other cases would seem impossible for a woman. Yongzheng Emperor, he was born in December 1678 and he died in October 1735. His age was 56 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Yongzheng was a Chinese emperor whose reign focused on centralizing authority, combating corruption, and improving fiscal policies, leaving a significant impact on Qing governance. He was the fifth emperor of the Qing dynasty and the third Qing emperor to rule over China proper. The fourth son of the Kangxi emperor, Yongzheng, ascended the throne following prolonged disputes over succession. A hard-work ruler, he aimed to create a more effective government, cracked down on corruption, and reformed the personal and financial administration. His reign also saw the formation of the Grand Council, an institution that had a major impact on the future of the dynasty. Militarily, Yongzheng continued his father's efforts to consolidate Qing's position in Outer Mongolia and Tibet through force. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.